Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I've got two filmmakers with me today. I've got Omri Rose and Jan Fischer, and I'm really proud to have them here. Their film, actually, you guys have a couple of special status with me because your film, Achan and Ezra.
Great pronunciation.
Well, Hebrew school. But it was one of the first films, because of COVID, it first was at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2020, and then you submitted to Film Invasion Los Angeles, and it used to be that if someone submitted to one of the other festivals after the first one, we'd give you a refund and say, just wait. But because of COVID and virtual, I was like rubbing my hands over this, saying, oh boy, Achan and Ezra is going to be at the theater because we'll be back in the theater in June of 2021. And then we didn't quite get into the theater, so... But I think Achan and Ezra is like the first film that was in both festivals, so wow. I don't even have to explain to you two that I programmed two festivals. So thank you so much for the film, and very proud to say that it's going to be in the Discovery Indie Film TV series in Season 5, which I believe we're aiming for a March 15th release, which is like 3.5 weeks from now, but it's looking good. I think the whole season has come together with a lot of great... Actually, I'm really glad to have your film in it because
thank you.
I love having comedy in there. But, so first I'm supposed to mention the TV series and ask people, hey, look, be nice. Go to Amazon Prime Video, search for Discover Indie Film. Don't watch movies on your phone, so use Prime Video on that nice, big, chunky TV and with a Prime app in it somehow. And enjoy Discover Indie Film. It's a series that is an anthology of short films that have been in the two festivals that I program, and I guarantee it's a lot of fun. And if you wait till after March 15th or so, you'll also see Jan and Omri's comedy. So, with that said, did I mention anything else? Okay, so now I'm just going to throw it to you two gentlemen. We were chatting so much before we started recording.
Yeah.
But I think I warned you. I'm just going to ask you. You can decide who goes first. But I'm really interested in what got you into the film industry. Omri is a writer and actor. Jan directed the film, and both extremely talented, and it's an extremely good film.
Thank you.
So, why don't you go first? Who wants to say their upbringing?
Well, I'll jump on the last thing you said about watching it on a big, nice TV and add, go to your TV settings and get rid of the pre-function video settings that give all sorts of like blur motion and stuff, which drive filmmakers crazy.
Motion smoothing
and
stuff.
It's the worst. Or the preset color correction stuff. It's like... horrible. It's one of the first things I do when I go to like a friend's house and they turn on the TV and I'm like, save me.
I'm proud to say I actually just joined the world of 4K. I was very slow to buy a new TV. Got a new TV, probably because the sales were good for the Super Bowl. And that was the first thing I did. I turned off that motion smoothing.
Why do they have it? Doesn't make sense to me.
I know.
Just to annoy filmmakers.
No, I tell you why they have it.
Tell us.
As a filmmaker, you look for a great DP. You spend all this money on lights. You're like, I got the DP who was nominated for Golden Globe or whatever. And then you go shoot your movie. It looks amazing. And then you do a screening in your friend's house. It looks horrible. And they're like, who was your DP? It's so bad.
So again, to annoy filmmakers.
It is bizarre. Actually, I didn't catch it till there was some jitter. There was jitter on a pan. And I was like, oh, that setting. Mm-hmm. And of course, I had to tell the wife and kid, I'm like, trust me. Just let me hit pause and let me fix this goddamn TV because Sony doesn't know what they're doing. I don't know why everyone does it.
It's really strange to me. Speaking of also theaters and things, screening the movie, we were lucky enough to also have our film recently in a festival in Israel in person. Jan unfortunately
in person for him.
Yeah, Jan unfortunately couldn't attend, but it was the first time that I saw the film in a cinema. We had done smaller screenings and things, but just to be in a room watching the film with a group of people, especially with a comedy, and that's also quite special because the film's in Hebrew, so we had an audience that understood everything without reading the subtitles. It was just a really special moment and a treat to, hear the laughter and that they're riding along with the journey of the film, so that was fun.
Absolutely, and the fact that it was shot there, and I'm sure that was an amazing experience to take it home, so to speak, even though you both are based in LA. And I admit, I'm one of those, well, first I want to know your history, but I am one of those people, the first time I watched it, I'm like, yeah, they must have gone off in the desert here in California and found a nice, but no, it's shot in Israel.
Well, actually, this place is very special where we shot it. If we did it here in the U.S., to get a place like that, we probably would be able to get it because it's a national park, but also they probably would have charged us crazy amount of money. But we got lucky. This place is one of a kind in the world. It's under protection, and it really doesn't exist anywhere else. It used to be the sea. So you can still see pieces of like sea things, in there. And now it's basically a desert, but it has a lot of significance in, as a historical thing. And you can, have animals there. So we were not allowed to do anything. They're like, this is the road, stay here, don't move. Although they didn't put a bunch of people check on us like it would have been in the US. So that was good. We even managed to readjust some, since we, based in LA. So we are filmmakers from here. We can do whatever we want. So we showed, we were like, okay, this thing is sticking. We should move it.
Yeah, we tore down a sign and then reassembled it.
So we did do some changes, although we were told not to go left, not to go right, which we tried not to. But yes, we did adjust some things.
But you left everything as you found it.
Oh yeah,
yes.
You restored it.
Cleaner than how we found it. Yes,
for sure.
This is the way we
all right, but we're talking about your amazing film. But first, tell me your history. What got you into acting and writing?
Well,
and this is Omri speaking.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Omri.
I can figure out me speaking, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's Jan.
So for me, my mom tells the story that when I was 5, I went up to her and I was like, Mom, I want to be an actor. And she's like, now, Omri, do you want to be an actor or do you want to be a star? And I said, TikTok, baby. No, I'm just kidding. Don't even have a TikTok. No, it was always for me about acting. So I said, no, Mom, I want to be an actor, not a star. She's like, okay, great. Then we'll, support this endeavor and you're in it for the right reasons, kind of. And, so I grew up everywhere. Nigeria, Switzerland, Israel, Kenya, Holland. My dad was a diplomat, so we were constantly stationed to different places. And for me, acting was like an escape, I guess, a lot easier to go into a character and find yourself there. And writing came along with that, creativity, the output of it. And I also used to play like role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, which is really good for, opening your imagination to worlds and creating them and writing and putting in characters. And it just kind of everything rolled from there. That's the short version anyway.
Very short version, but I'll say... That makes perfect sense, and I think a lot of kids who move around a lot get into acting and get into performance. And Dungeons & Dragons, I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I think there's an undercurrent of Dungeons & Dragons in the industry, like in entertainment, because it is role-playing and it is very creative. Mm-hmm. And I believe there's some really famous people who are coming out of the shadows and admitting that they even play D&D as adults.
The biggest one is name that you would kind of not accept. Vin Diesel, of course, is one of those guys who's like, yeah, he's a big D&D guy. So it's kind of fun.
And Joe, I'm forgetting.
Yeah, Joe Manganiello.
Manganiello,
yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And by the way, I'll add, I love your mother's response. I love that she said, do you want to be an actor or do you want to be famous, a star? Because that's a very intelligent way to look at it. Because most kids just want to be famous. They just, right. I just want to be that person on TV. I don't care about the work. So she actually, that was a really perceptive way to respond.
My mom's a very clever woman, very intelligent, and a very special lady, very talented. Bit of an artist herself. So
excellent. And I think everyone out there knows you should always trust a man who loves his mom, respects his mom.
Yeah.
Well, cool. And acting all around. And did you end up here? What brought you here?
Oh, okay. So the longer version.
Yeah, well, I want to know.
Why not? Yeah. So
I assume you guys met in LA, or
we met in London. Actually. So,
dear Lord, well, you got to get us at least to London.
Yeah. Well, my first professional stuff in the acting world was when I was like 15. I was in Holland at the time. I was doing a lot of theaters. Most people start in the acting world. And I ended up doing a tour when I was 15 across Europe. Got to miss school, which was fun. So that was an amazing experience. And that was the first, as I said, professional kind of thing. And then I went to Israel, did military service, and then afterwards went to London. And in London is where I kind of began my real professional career. more in film and TV, and voiceover came into it. I do a lot of voiceover work as well. And through a mutual friend in London, we met. There's a funny story there.
Very interesting friend.
He's a very interesting friend, but he's like, I have to introduce you to my really good friend, Jan. He's great. And then he connects us on WhatsApp to this thing, and he creates this group, and he's like, this is my friend Jan, and I don't even remember what last name he writes. And then Jan's like, that's not my last name. It's like, oh, it's not? I've known you for so long. You don't even know my last name. It's like, oh, I made a mistake. It was just a really random connection.
True. That's what happened.
That's hilarious. And by the way, one of the compliments I was going to pay you is, first time I saw the film, I thought your British accent was so great.
Oh, thank you.
And now I know you lived in London for a while.
Well, my dad's British as well. So, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I love your... I believed you were a British guy.
Oh,
actually,
thank you. Well, I am British.
Even though you're an actor.
I have a passport.
Yeah.
But you did model the accent from not British.
Funnily enough, I modeled it not on a British person. This is a funny... Well, basically, Chris Hemsworth in the first Thor does this kind of like very big, kind of broad, Britishy kind of accent. It's a little different than he does in other movies. Kind of, yes, we're going over here. Yes, all right. I like this. Give me another. And, throwing down the glass. And it's kind of like this bombastic kind of thing. And so I kind of went in that direction with the accent. And he's, of course, Australian. So there you go.
But it works.
It works. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so London. So should we do Jan's history and get you to London?
Get to London.
Wow, that will be...
He also has a crazy
It's very hard to say that it's short...
Go from birth to London in seven minutes
will
or
be
less.
a bit longer, but I'll try. So I am originally... I'm born in Ural Mountains. Now, nobody knows where it is, of course.
I do from the game Risk, but go on.
Yeah, but it's very close to Siberia. It's very cold, and the mountains are the oldest mountains on Earth. And what's unique about the city I'm from is that until 1989, it didn't exist on the maps. Well, the city actually did exist, but the next city to it didn't exist. The reason is because that's where all the nuclear weapon was essentially positioned, and they had all kinds of... It basically was closed city. Foreigners weren't allowed, and nobody knew it existed. So that's why I said it's a long way to London. So
that, by the way, fascinating that it was a city that the USSR kept hidden from maps.
Correct. Also, it's
so strategically important.
Exactly, and for the reasons, it also was super industrial and actually very important for the Russian economy at the moment. At that moment, also it's the most polluted spot on Earth. Still is, because they had a nuclear explosion there in the 60s, which was like 3 times bigger than Chernobyl, apparently. Again, who knows? It's just the internet. So that's where I was born. And no, I don't have horns or a tail, but, it's possible.
Quite healthy for someone who, the USSR had no EPA.
Exactly. So my family ended up there by a fluke because they're actually European, but that's a whole other story. The point is, I was born there. I liked movies since I was a child. I wanted to be an actor. Around, you don't even know that. No, around I was 6 years old. I mean, even at that time in Russia, to be an actor, you really only could become an actor if you were living in Moscow. Maybe St. Petersburg, maybe some other cities that had the studios, because that's where they picked the young people. Living where I was, there's no way. It's like, and that's before internet and all of that stuff, so there's almost no way you can just dream about it. But at that time, so when I was 6 years old, we had a film festival. Speaking about film festivals, they did do film festivals. They invited people from Moscow, actors. It was a children film festival. There was a few really famous Russian actors, especially in the children community. So I was 6 or 7. I went to the festival because there was this movie theaters for kids, which were very cheap, and you can go and watch movies. And I went to one of the super famous Russian stars, because I was, at that time, I didn't care. And I said, hi, I want to be in the movies. She looked at me like, okay. So 2 hours later, I'm in a restaurant with her and the whole gang of all these famous actors. And she calls my mom and says, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. My mom almost had a heart attack. She's like, it's the same thing if, your 7-year-old child went and suddenly, I don't know, you got a call from Chris Hemsworth or Tom Cruise going, hi, I'm here, I'm here in a restaurant hanging out with you or whatever. So they were like, they liked me and they put me in the database for, not that I ever got the role, but that's how it started. But at that time I was already fascinated by movies, although I didn't see anything aside from Russian movies. But there are some really good Russian movies that that, of course.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask it if it was all Russian
at that
Soviet
time,
cinema.
No, there was some foreign films that were available in the theaters that Russia allowed. We're talking about 84, 85 approximately. There was one of the movies actually that a few movies that I saw very young, which were allowed into Russia, were. I mean, I'll have to answer this question, I guess, at some point later, but it was Once Upon a Time in America, which I had to sneak into the theater because it was not, at the age of 10, you weren't really, or whatever it was, I don't remember exactly, you weren't allowed to see this movie. And they were showing the full version of it, which is kind of interesting. So I remember that movie. There was an Oliver Stone film, which I don't remember which one. So I watched some movies which I was not really supposed to watch. But that was in the theaters. But what I really got into the idea of actually making films myself is when, the VCRs showed up in Russia. And I was telling you that story before. So VCRs, when, perestroika started, as you call it here, when VCRs showed up, it cost more than a car. You could buy probably a car and a half in exchange. So that's how much you had to pay for a VCR. So it was really a luxury. My father had access to one through his work. So he used to bring it on the weekends. So I started watching movies and I watched Star Wars. Now, at that time, in Russia, there was no legal system for those movies. They were all pirated. So the translation was basically done by 3 people, 1 woman, 2 men, always. But because they didn't want to be identified, they used to wear laundry clips. I don't know what they call the ones that you use the laundry,
clothes.
Yeah, clothes. Yes, those ones they used to put on their
clips.
Nose, and they sounded like this, and the whole movie you would listen to voice like that. And so you get used to it. So that's how I watched pretty much most of the films that people here already were familiar with. But for me, Star Wars looked like it was from another planet, and that's, I just remember because it was like, oh my God, it's fascinating. I also watched, funny enough, Mel Brooks, which is connects to Achan and Ezra, because that's, but I remember I was like, again, probably 10 or 11, I saw the world history, not world,
History of
the world. And I was really disappointed there was no part 2. I remember I was like, where is part 2? Well, coming 30 years later.
Part 2 was Jews in space.
Yes, I know, but I actually thought that I was trying to find the second, because those tapes were also very hard to get a hold of. So people were moving them from place to place, so the quality was not great either. But I'm not even going there because that's the only way to get movies that were on actual screen in theaters, which was really rare for an American film actually shown, even in 87, 88 still. So that was kind of my influence. And at that time I started thinking, okay, maybe acting is interesting, but maybe I can make movies. And then, one thing led to the other. We left Russia, ended up in Israel. I lived in Europe for a bit and then came here, studied, did all kinds of things on the way. Then went to London, and and then if you on a longer story, then here in LA I met these crazy people that introduced me to other crazy people, and those crazy people introduced me to a guy named John something, and this John something then ended up going to London to teach, and he is the one who introduced me to Omri. And that's how I met Omri.
Jan, of course, in this time is also producing movies. His background is a producer, so
yes, true.
This is his directorial debut. And
so it's funny because I wanted to make a movie for a while as a director, and I was thinking about it because that was my original plan. I want to direct, but then I got into because directing a movie, I mean, of course, there's different options, but especially when I started, you didn't really have a phone that you could use to shoot a film. I remember I was at the NAB in Las Vegas when they introduced Canon XL1. So that's when this whole thing, oh my God, this camera can actually maybe shoot a film. So I've seen it with my own eyes. First time they ever showed you the camera, I was at this Las Vegas convention. I was still going to school in Orlando, film school. So I always want to direct, but unfortunately I realized that you need money to make a movie, and I didn't have an ability or a family or anything. So I said, okay, maybe I can learn how to make movies, organize it, and then get directing. And then it went, one thing led to the other, how it is. Then this guy here, Omri, he was like, okay, you want to direct? You should direct. And I'm like, okay, but when? He's like, okay, I have this script. I'm like, yeah, but let's do it next year. He's like, no, I'm going to Israel. Here, we're making it. That's literally how it happened. I mean, I owe him that, because I would have been procrastinating making this movie for now 10 years, believe me. And so he's like, no, we're going. And so I was like, shit, sorry. And I was like, I have to go.
Curse all you want.
So I was like, okay, I have to go. That's it. So I was like, this Omri, and now he's making me go direct this movie. I don't want to do it.
So actually, so you had this producing career, film producing career, and you knew him as a producer.
Right.
But as soon as he told you he had always wanted to direct, you just called his bluff then and there.
Well, we'd been working together for a while. I'd been helping develop projects with him, and we had a couple of things going on. And then, of course, when Jan shared that he wanted to direct, it actually started before then that I had written something that we were trying to develop, and that didn't work out in the end. And then I kind of was like, Jan, I have this old script that I wrote a while ago that, I'm going to Israel. Maybe it's a funny script. I like it. It's kind of silly.
And I like comedies. And for me, I love doing comedies. I think I'm funny, even though nobody else thinks
So
I would disagree with those people.
Yeah, I sent it to him, and he liked it, riffed on it. And then we were talking, so when are we going to film? And back and forth, and this and that. Should we shoot in LA? Should we shoot it in Israel? What's it going to cost? And then I was going to Israel, and he was like, oh, you need to meet my DP friend in Israel. And he's this incredible DP. And I was like, oh, cool. Wait, would he shoot our short film? And he's like, well, maybe I'll talk to him. Yeah, but probably he'd shoot it if we do it in Israel. And I was like, okay, then let's shoot it in Israel. Okay, but when? Now, let's do it. I'm going. Let's do it. And then it kind of rolled from there. So
yeah, we went to Israel mostly because of Giora, who is very well known. He did Lebanon, which I'm sure you heard about. He did Tehran on Apple. He did this movie called Foxtrot, which was, he won European Academy Award. He won Venice. He's one of the best DPs, and he is a really good friend. And I told him, if you shoot my movie, I'll come to Israel. And he said, fine, I'll help you. So that's how the movie happened. So, it was kind of very quick. And, of course, with my luck, it had to be done. And then COVID started, and I couldn't go. My whole thing was, we're going to go to festivals. We're going to screen the movie in the theaters. It didn't happen. Aside from the one screening that happened in Israel, which I wasn't at. So... Yeah. So that's what happens.
Let me ask. So the DP, you actually had a lot of connections from your years of producing.
Yeah, but we never actually worked together. Actually, it's not true. We did work together. I did a small movie. You're right. Yeah. Did a small film in Romania, which he DP'd. I didn't direct. I was more of a consulting producer, really. But the director really wanted him, and we were friends before. So I said, "Do you want to come and hang out with me in Romania?" And he likes to, likes good wine, so he always wants to go to Europe. So he's technically European too. So yes, so that we were friends. Really, not really worked together aside from this little film. But I think he's one of the most incredible DPs. Honestly, because he can shoot anything in any way, and that's really what kind of pushed us to go to Israel.
And he saved our movie because we had a flood between our 2 days of shooting.
That's true.
And we had to move locations completely, and you can't tell because he figured out a way to shoot it.
Well, the original idea of mine was to shoot the whole movie in one shot.
One take.
Because if you look at the film, it could be done, and that was my initial idea, but Giora was like, well... I don't know, maybe we can split into two parts because there's different sides, but let's try it. So that was something I really wanted. So at least in 2 takes, meaning in 2 pieces, but but unfortunately, and again, because of his experience, so when we were shooting the first day, we were at this really unique place. It was really good weather. He was like, you know what? Of course, I'm so produced, so I could apply that head, but we had a really small crew, so, Omri was doing partial production design, trying to organize this car,
running around with chainmail, doing all this production.
So
you couldn't just pull it off when you.
He was really. I mean, we were we're doing a lot of things because it was a small crew, and we had the best DP, the best film. The camera department you can get in Israel, in my opinion, or anybody's opinion. That first they see everybody. Of course, Gior's friends. So they so at some point midday he was like, you know what? Let's turn around the camera. Let's shoot this direction. I was like, yeah, but I want to do. He's like, yeah, but look at the sun. Trust me, shoot this side because you never know. And thanks God I listened, because the second day we didn't go there because it was raining and we knew it, but what we didn't realize is that it's a desert.
Flooded completely.
So the day 3,
heavy
we
rain.
Come there, and literally as soon as you get to the area, there's a huge lake in front of us. And we had an SUV, actually a few of them, but it's still a lake. And the management, they were like, look, guys, you go in, let's say we let you in. There was a whole story with some kids there that they didn't want to, but they're like, okay, go check it out. So I took the SUV and we went into the place we were shooting, but it was all wet and muddy because it's all sand. Right. So even if they let us in, there's no way we could recreate. It was muddy. So I was like, okay, what do we do? So we don't have the money. It's a small project. It's a tiny short film. I already have people here. So what do we do? So Giora was like, okay, forget about your continuous shot, not going to happen, but we can do something. No, first we were looking for a similar area. So for 2 hours we drove around trying to find a similar road, and I was thinking in the car myself, okay, this is great that he made me shoot the other direction because there's no way. I mean,
you'll have somewhere to go.
We would have had to go an extra day for sure. So then we were like, okay, we cannot find a similar place. Everything is wet. So we went back to where we started.
Same background.
Yes, and we found the top of the hill, which had the same back. And we just
didn't shoot the floor.
Yeah.
Just moved up.
We just didn't shoot the floor.
Yeah, basically. We also had to use smaller, less wide lenses or narrow lenses. And unfortunately, in the movie, most of the people don't pay attention.
No one knows.
Yeah, I know that, and I really was like, okay, I wish I didn't have to do it, but it works. Of course, because of that, there was some mistakes with the movements because we didn't really have a continuity person. So, it took us forever to edit it.
In the editing room, we had to come up with some creative.
So it doesn't look like he suddenly has the sword here and then sword there. But this piece was difficult because we essentially cheated. But because of Giora and because of his ability to know and to see things, and I kind of started thinking, okay. And he told me in the beginning when we were discussing the movie, he's like, be prepared that this could happen. So I kind of knew what could, not that he knew about the flood, but he was always saying, look, you never know. So we made it happen. Omri was all stressed out, running around, going, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," And I was like, but I've produced enough movies to be calm about those things. I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I'll have to, go and work in a restaurant, get more money so we can pay for the movie.
At the end, when we actually went to the editing room, we only had about 30 takes the entire movie. 30 setups where we said action and go. And then, we have takes that are like 15-minute long. Sometimes we didn't stop and we just did a little piece over again, but just because it was really long, continuous stuff. So
also, it's a comedy, so I wanted the actors to play
off each other.
To actually, and improvise a little bit, because I had an idea of making it a little bit cartoonish, so I actually liked them being a little bit over the top, because just for me, that's what I wanted, it's being like, almost like in the theater, almost.
I think we talked about that in one of our festival Q&As, how it really... We haven't talked about your casting yet, because obviously your actors for Achan and Ezra are amazing.
Thank you.
But it has a real vaudevillian feel. And it does feel like, like one of the late 50s, early 60s, like a Cosby and Hope sort of comedy team. So the fact that you let them play it out as if it was a stage performance makes sense to me, because it plays that way. They're so funny together.
But that was the idea. That's why I put... if you notice in the movie, there's music that assigned to each character. And certain places, when he walks, you have a music playing. I almost wanted to create that kind of like...
leitmotif.
Yes, like it had to be over the top kind of acting a little bit. Not making it cheesy, but not like... There's not a serious comedy. They have to be a little bit... Which, of course, backfired in some places, because unfortunately, in the day and age we live in, some people, when we did some test screening, they'd be like, I don't get it.
People thought we were being offensive.
Yeah, we're being offensive.
The movie played a lot better in Europe than America, where they're a little bit less PC.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Jewish film festivals here.
Jewish film festivals didn't take us.
They didn't like the movie. Not all of them.
In
Some
Europe,
did.
they took us. They took us in Europe.
Yeah, Europe. I mean, the British Jewish Film Festival loved the movie, but here I got an interesting, because I know some people personally. They're like, even I'm not going to mention the festival here in California. I know the people. And they took another movie of mine, which is also a comedy, not a feature that I produced, but they were like, yeah, we're not sure. People might find that, and I'm like,
that we're making fun of.
In other words, they didn't like the fact that these two Israeli, although Judean men were debating whether or not they would kill someone. Did they just not like that representation?
It's more like, when you watch a screening, and we did, there's one particular line, for instance, that I think is hilarious. But basically, my character in the film is the passed out crusader that these two Jewish guys come across during the Third Crusade. And eventually they decide to give him water, and one of them gives my character water, and he kind of spits out and he goes, wine, right? And of course they don't speak English, so they turn to each other, and one of them goes, what did he say? And the other one goes, oh, he said you're a dirty Jewish heathen who deserves to die. And then the other one looks at him for a second and goes, all that in such a small word?
Which is hilarious.
Which I think is hilarious.
It's hilarious.
It's difficult with the comedies.
It's comedy.
It's comedy. And then, of course, the other one immediately goes, no, I have no idea what he said. What do you think? I don't speak his language. But,
but they were offended by that.
Look, I've been in screenings, and it's usually Americans, you see people just go, they tighten up, and you're like, what did he just say?
Especially non-Jewish Americans. That's the funny thing. Look, the comedies are tough these days. I honestly feel very bad for comedians. I actually think that, especially since Trump is not president anymore, I really feel bad for them, because before at least they could make fun of him. Now I have no idea. Like, everything is, and this movie, whole idea was to make not fun of people, but it's supposed to be over the top funny. This is actually exactly the goal is to show the stupidity of certain things and to teach people. And some, like UK, European, they loved it.
Of like getting past these strange
Israelis, of course, like it.
It's very positive. Yeah. I mean, because the Crusader very well may have wanted to kill them if he found them passed out. Like,
right.
Like it's a humane. It's a message about humanity.
Yeah,
and it's positive, and it is annoying that you dealt with that. It annoys me that you dealt with that, because African American community, they're allowed to have characters say things to each other that other people shouldn't say, and your two Jewish characters should be able to joke about. And I can say this because I'm Jewish. I can joke with a Jewish friend that I can go, yeah, dirty Jew. Like, I can do it. We're allowed.
And in Israel, it's very prevalent. So I kind of wanted my characters to talk modern, even though it's anachronistic on the time, and debate like two modern Jewish guys debate, And again, we're Jewish, Israeli. We kind of have that familiarity with that stuff, and just overanalyze and overtalk, and just like, there's this joke, two Jews, 7 opinions, and it's that kind of idea. They just can't make a decision, and that's the movie. It's a perpetual indecision of like, do we do this? Do we do that? Why don't you do this? Okay, let's do it, but you do it. No, why do I have to do it? You do it. No, okay, but you said you were going to, it just keeps on going and going and going.
Well, people don't have a gray area in the United States anymore. That's the problem, and that's why we got that kind of feedback from people, even though people, liked the film, but I think festivals were afraid.
More
because
cautious.
For me, this is a movie about, for starters, you have a crusader who doesn't speak their language and who is there essentially to conquer their land, and they are supposed to be afraid of him. Instead, they end up finding him, a common language, and even giving him food, and not only not killing him, but actually helping him.
And he helps them.
Didn't exactly. So that's what I think the message is that no matter what your background, no matter who you are, no matter how you look, no matter what kind of whatever, you can find the middle ground and gray area maybe, and still keep your faith. Meaning, they didn't become Christians. He didn't become Jewish. He still believes that he's here to conquer and do whatever. They still believe that they have to hide and take their, the Torah scrolls, by the way, we never talk about it, but in the...
they're in the cart.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's a movie that teaches you something, but make it in a funny way. But unfortunately, a lot of times here in US, we got that kind of like, I don't understand why it's funny, but we did really good in Europe and European festivals.
And, people liked it in America.
Jewish festivals
yes,
here
as well.
So it was really the Jewish festivals were sensitive.
Strangely,
yes. But
do they not know their history well enough to know that it was the Ottoman Empire at the time anyway? And
I think
It's very
people,
strange.
I had a story very similar to it with another movie I produced, a small documentary, which did very well and actually was used here by some like a organization like a prison system, for example, about tolerance, about the Jewish skinhead. Very small documentary I got involved with because I really wanted to help a friend of mine who had this idea, and we got the same exact feedback from the Jewish festivals. They didn't want, aside from one in the US, they were like, no. But I'm like, but this is a story about, it actually shows you something. No. So I had very similar approach here, although it's a comedy. So I could even understand it there. Okay, you're a Jewish guy who becomes a skinhead, gets almost killed, goes to whatever. But here it's a comedy, and still we got, so I guess a
lot of Jewish film festivals tend to be a little bit more traditional in that they want, if it's about Jews, they want it to be like the Hasidic community in New York, and he's leaving the community, or they're getting married, or this is a butcher, and or it's political or whatever. And it's funny because one particular very big festival, Jewish festival in the UK, that loved our film and everything. We even got feedback from the guy when we submitted. He's like, "Oh my God, this is amazing, hilarious! I wish more films like this were being made. So funny." And I couldn't help but chuckle because this particular film festival years ago, I submitted the script to for funding, and they turned me down. And they made their typical kind of Hasidic whatever thing. And that year, they also made a typical Hasidic whatever film that a friend of mine was in.
Every year they fund short, or
they kind of give funding out. So it's quite funny. Jan and I also even discussed this in pre-production about the film. That like, is this really the movie that we're going to make? We like the concept, we like the script, but what if we make it like in Afghanistan and modern, and it's a U.S. soldier who two like Afghanis come across with a cart? It's the exact same premise. And how would that play? It's the exact same premise. But you make that movie, and how is that going to be received compared to something like this?
That's so funny because I'll just share this morning. I knew I was going to talk to you two, and I think I was in the restroom that might be a few inches from my left hand right now. and I was thinking about it like your film actually could have been, two Jews finding a guy in Klan robes. Mm-hmm. Or two black people finding someone passed out in Klan robes and helping and deciding to help him after debating whether or not they would finish him. Like, it's completely modern and completely, boy.
Yeah, but it could be exactly. It could happen anywhere. It could happen
anywhere, anytime.
Anytime. It could. It does, and it does teach you a lesson. But,
I think so.
But people that liked it, they really liked it. Yeah, we got a lot of good feedback. We won some awards. We were at some really good festivals. But we noticed that,
including yours. Thank you.
Yes, including yours. But we noticed that UK and Europe really fought. The feedback of the movie was much stronger than here. Not that we applied to every single festival either, but
no, you can't. But and which is interesting to me, just knowing that. I'm under the impression that in Europe and the UK, sometimes there's still some. We're told as American Jews, I don't know if this is true or not, that there's still more anti-Semitism over there than here.
I mean, it's growing around the world, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think maybe one thing that also helped that we haven't mentioned yet, I mean, we kind of mentioned it around it, is the film is in Hebrew, and it's so subtitled, and Americans aren't as familiar with watching subtitles, and especially comedy subtitled is a tricky thing. True. We often hear about subtitled movies that are gaining acclaim and they're dramas or serious or whatever, but we don't really hear about as many comedies that are subtitled because humor is harder to translate.
I think you're right. In fact, I think even our award jury probably. I think the subtitles, it's tough. It is tough. Even though you throw in English.
Yeah, but the English, like that whole bit, why it was so fun to listen to it in Israel is because there's wordplay jokes there.
I wanted to compliment you or tell. I mean, the Metaber.
Metaber.
That sticks in my head still.
Oh, thank you.
Just the way you say it and the way it carries.
Metaber.
Yeah.
We consider doing it in English and French.
Yeah.
We talked about it for a second. Maybe the night could be French. I don't
technically,
know.
there were a lot of French Crusaders.
Yeah. But then we were like, you know what? We're shooting in Israel. Hebrew is funny.
We wanted to make an Israeli
Let's just make
movie.
it in Hebrew. We contemplated that because of the humor and because of that for a second. And then, of course, if we did French, we were like, then you'll have to learn French a little bit.
Je parle un peu.
Yeah, he can do it. But the point is, we considered that for 5 minutes, and then we're like, no, let's do it in Hebrew.
But the feature's in English.
Yes, but it will be
you've adapted?
Yes,
we have
adapted.
written the feature.
A quick question. Why'd you choose... Did you get to choose... Obviously, you got to choose what character you played. Mm-hmm. You didn't want to be one of the two main comedians. You wanted to be the guy who's passed out?
A couple things there. First of all, I'm 6'1", and that's quite tall for Jewish actors, generally speaking.
Especially at that time.
I'm also ginger, and quite pale, so, in keeping with different things. But
So you thought it would have been jarring if you had been Achan or Ezra?
I'm producing the movie as well. I don't want to do as much of a role.
It's helpful to be unconscious.
He was also taking care of the car.
I'm taking care of a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I don't want the extra burden of that. Also, I've always wanted to play knights. Like growing up, it was knights in shining armor and everything. So there was that fun thing to it.
And there's a Monty Python vibe too.
Oh, for sure. I love Monty Python.
Yeah,
and also, our actors, we flew them out and took care of them.
Yeah, they're not from US, from Israel. I mean, they are from Israel originally, but one lives in London, the other lives here. And we didn't really do casting either. We kind of had them.
People
we know them. He knows them even before, and we have all this weird connection with one of them. And I do.
So you'd seen them work together. And
no, they've never worked together.
No. So that chemistry.
We did readings ahead of time.
You created that chemistry, though,
and rehearsed.
Well, the guy that plays Ezra, he's kind of like this in real life. I mean, really is. In a way, so it was very easy.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I thought of him, because he has a very positive kind of like the world is beautiful kind of outlook.
He
which
would
is great.
help someone who's
comes
across.
He would
sometimes help too much. Omri was like, "How about him?" I'm like, you know what? He doesn't have to act,
even though he hadn't really done much comedy. So it was quite interesting.
Interesting. Well, great casting. I mean, you could tell he's very funny.
Yeah.
They're both they play off each other wonderfully.
They do.
So even if he doesn't do a lot of comedy, you saw in him that he would be great at this.
Yeah. No, he was good.
Yeah.
They both were good, but he really does have that kind of personality. So it was very easy to just be yourself.
They both kind of embody the characters in some way.
You followed the John Huston school of directing, which is 90% of it is casting.
For sure. Yeah,
true.
For sure.
And work for this movie.
Yeah.
And it was fun also, aside from the flood, but even that was fun. That was fun.
That was fun.
Fun story to talk about afterwards.
For sure. Well, especially because you got what you needed.
Exactly.
It would have been really lousy to come back to LA and be like, well...
No, we would have had... If Giora didn't force me to do this to turn the camera, because that wasn't the plan... I don't know how he figured it out. We would have had to shoot an extra day for sure.
Yeah, something similar.
But because, it would have been very hard because they were on another project, to put a crew like this together was very hard because we really had the top.
Yeah, I mean, I assume you had flights and all kinds of things.
Well, that was another thing. One of them needed to leave because he had something here. I don't remember. I think it was your own. Yeah, but anyway, there was no way. We had to shoot it this day, so we did what we could, and it worked.
And if you hear a gardener, it's because my gardener is always scheduled to be here on a Wednesday, so I'm allowed to do podcasts on Thursday. But he didn't show up yesterday, and now he's here unscheduled.
Oh, great.
Might have met a knight on the way or something.
Son of a gun. Although I've noticed these microphones actually often only pick up what's near them, because we have the gain pretty low. So
okay, fair enough.
The three of us are hearing a gardener right now in a really lousy way, but I think this will be okay. We'll check it.
It's fine.
So you get back here and great edit. Good. Are you two working together here in LA on the edit or
the edit?
We had
I mean, how much do you want to talk about the edits?
So I have this friend. I always try to give friends an opportunity, and he's a really good friend. He's a distributor in Israel. He's American who lives there forever, who actually has an interesting story by himself. He used to do all these Canon pictures. Remember Canon?
Yeah.
Anyway, he's a really nice guy. He was like, you know what? I have a great editor for you in Israel. It's cheaper, but regardless, it's in Hebrew, so you don't have to see it. Give
do
him
the
movie.
assembly first, and then maybe.
Yes, I'm like, okay, great. No, I mean the guy is very nice, and then of course we give him the movie, and then at some point, my friend's wife tells me, "He gave you this guy? Are you crazy? he barely knows how to make trailers. I mean, he does that for us." And I'm like, okay, but I mean, for his defense, he assembled things together. It was not really a movie, but he put it together. And then I was like, okay, this is not going to work. Omri and I were like, okay, this is just, okay, it's an assembly, not even assembly, nothing makes sense. So then it was a good start, but I was hoping he's going to finish the whole movie. So then we brought it here. And then, since, again, budget, this, that, we
pulled our hair out for 3 days.
Yes, and then
working on an edit with an editor friend of ours.
Yes, who is a friend and actually very successful editor who is now doing major stuff. I've known him forever. And he's like, okay, I'll sit with you, two crazy people. Because I think he regretted it afterwards, especially with this part which we were telling you. There was this piece which in the third with
the cart,
moving the cart, which was not only complicated because it was shot completely different location, but meaning we were on the top, so we couldn't really move too much, but also because there was a mistake with the sword, so it was a lot of thinking of how to edit it so people cannot see what happens, meaning they cannot see the mistakes. So it took us a while.
We didn't have as much coverage as we would have liked, basically, is the technical way to put it.
Well, I mean, you already named that you had 30 setups.
Yeah.
But it worked, and Rafa, who is the editor, he really put a lot of time into it, but sat with us and probably cursed. I was like, oh my God.
And actually your brother came up with a magical
yes, I forgot
solution.
about that. Yes, true. My brother.
So you showed it to some people and got some suggestions here and there?
Yes. But you're right. My brother actually did come up with a solution. I forgot about that.
Yes.
It's good thinking.
We flipped a shot.
Yes.
Secretly.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Which
it's so nice.
Helped solve a big problem.
All the things you can do now digitally.
So it helped. So it saved us. So yes, so that's how it was done. And then and then again, I guess it helps when you produce. I got the color and all the
the color.
Yes,
cool.
the color and what did we do? Did they do sound too?
No, the sound was your guy in Russia did the sound,
but he didn't mix. So anyway, so the color, I have a relationship with some of the bigger companies and Big Deluxe, which is Company 3 in London. I was working with them on our project, so I told them, guys, my friend, who is a post supervisor, was working, who I've known forever before he even was a post supervisor. This is why it's very important, whoever listening, it's very important to be nice to people when they start out, especially assistants, especially people, because you never know. And then he became very good, very big. He did some major films with major directors, and of course he has a relationship. So he's like, you know what? Let me talk to the head of the company. Maybe that can just do it for you. And they were like, yeah, no problem. So they basically comped the entire online post. They did color, and they did the delivery for me and everything, which is why the movie looks very good, of course. And then the sound was done by a friend in Russia. But the mix, I have no idea where we did. You're right, yes. So we basically took a little bit here, a little bit there. There's a really good musician, sound person here in LA. Then he helped us. So we basically, the mix was done in a few different places because, but yeah, we had a lot of help. I mean, the most important thing was to shoot it. Yeah. And then a lot of people helped us. The composer also, who is really talented, he's Italian. He's also a close friend. He did the music. Essentially for nothing, complained all the time. But then Omri even sings a song in there.
I do a little vocal in the score. Yeah.
Yes.
And I was going to say, when you were telling me earlier about how all this came together and all this, I think all the friendships involved in this is why not the only reason why, but it's part of the feeling of the film that so many friends came together even in Israel. And I think it's part of the heart of the film. I mean, the film has a really good heart.
Oh, thank you.
And I think everything you're telling me, it just kind of, it all falls together in place as someone who's just watched the film and just enjoyed it. That, yeah, of course, this was, longtime friends who decided to finally work together. Friends brought in actors who you'd known as friends. Like it just has a really warm feeling as a film.
We also had a very good group of people. We had kind of a pretty international crew in a way because, Giora, who is Israeli, but he's also German. We had, the costumes were done by a girl who is Muslim, who is an Israeli Arab, who is great, and she also did the production design kind of with Omri together, who is also really talented, and she's working a lot. We had even people coming from, very far east of Russia that wanted to help us, two girls that were doing a lot of, one of them I know from LA, but they were really helpful because we needed somebody to kind of assist and help, and one of them, she was kind of almost in a producer capacity in a way. And they actually flew specifically to help us for 9 hours because they're from Asian part of Russia, which of course, which was interesting because... And they enjoyed it, and talked.
And it had nothing to do with the fact that you grew up.
No, nothing to do with that. I actually know one of them from
quite a coincidence to end up working with them.
Yeah. So we had a lot of help from all kinds of people. An Italian composer who is here in LA, but nevertheless he's
Spanish editor.
A Spanish editor, exactly, who is nothing to do with that. He'd probably never heard Hebrew before he heard that. So
Baha'i sound mixer.
Yeah, I forgot about that too. Yes, we had. He's actually Persian, but he's So we had Persian, a really Baha'i, good international crew. People were helping a lot from all over, and the movie was paced together between Israel, UK, US, Russia. I mean, we got people to help us everywhere. So that's another reason why I think the story is exactly about that.
Yeah,
and that's why I think people just don't maybe see it. So we're taking another chance, and we decided to develop it into a full feature using those characters.
Different tone.
Same characters.
Same character concept, but we've shifted the tone slightly and done it in English. But looking at the short film, it's something that you don't always feel that way, and obviously there are things that you can nitpick at, but I'm very proud of it. When I see it, I'm very proud of it, and I'm happy to watch it. And it's a film that I feel good about. So it doesn't always happen on stuff you do, but I feel that way very much about this film.
And it's a bit different because you didn't have an idea for a feature and then say, well, let's test a short first. You made a short because you had a short script that was good. And then you looked at the film when you were done and said, okay, this is worth expanding. Was it the quality of the characters?
Jan was telling me from the beginning when he read it, he's like, oh, you should do a feature. You should write a feature. This would be fun as a feature. And I was trying to think about how it could work and, structurally how you would make it work. Because obviously you have to expand it and change it and that kind of stuff. And then based on the feedback that we got from the short and how it was received, I took that and the lessons like Hebrew, comedy, maybe do it in English, more international, for instance. The type of comedy that was working versus wasn't working and different ideas, and just worked off of that and made something, I like to say, a little more Mel Brooks, a little less Monty Python, even though I love Monty Python. But it's both.
But Monty Python is a little more niche, I think. Niche.
In America.
Yeah, I know they're huge. They should be.
Yeah.
But yeah. So a little more, not American, but just more, well, it's obviously a smart choice to go English.
Yeah. Put a couple more slapstick type jokes in there.
Is what we see in the short in the feature at all, or is that just...
we would have to reshoot completely. That scene would exist, but in a completely different iteration of it.
The scene is in the script.
Yeah, but in a different iteration.
Yeah. And obviously it becomes a much bigger world. And takes place. But it is the story of these two characters.
Yeah, going in a journey.
Which I'm
still about Achan and Ezra. Now they're traveling to Jerusalem rather than away from Jerusalem. and Salahuddin is in it, and it's fun. There's all sorts of historical cameos and
Still the Night,
fun things.
but he only shows up once in a while. Basically, he won't be popping up.
He's recurring. That's wonderful.
Yes, he's recurring because
there's a musical number.
He keeps looking for Jerusalem. Basically, that's his thing. But it's funny. People like the script. We got really good feedback. So now we're trying to figure out what would be the next step and how to get
really great female characters in there. That was really important to do, especially in a time period when it wouldn't necessarily be as prevalent to find a way to integrate it into the story. So,
and I think the script is it's funny. It has every possible character you can think about in it. Probably managed to offend everybody in it, but
everyone and no one.
Yes, it
works for the South Park guys.
But I mean, Bauer is lighter than South Park, but yes, I mean the humor is similar to what.
Well, I'm so glad you're doing it because I have had conversations with people about how much we miss that style of film, miss the buddy comedy, miss the road film because you don't really see it much these days.
Well, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, for me, it's essentially... The reason I thought about Achan and Ezra being a feature when I first read the short, I said, it's the same thing in a way, but takes place a long time ago. So you can be a little bit more... You can make it even funnier because, you can do things that you cannot do today. And that's, for me, was in my head, that's why I said maybe there's a feature in there.
I mean, the two-sentence pitch is Monty Python meets Mel Brooks, Harold and Kumar go to White Castle, except it's Achan and Ezra go to Jerusalem.
Yeah, and by the way, we had some problems with the name too because we were worried that nobody would be able
pronounce
to say Achan, or which we were right. So we tried all kinds of ideas for the name. Me and him, we were like going insane.
Where's the donkey?
You're going to change Achan's name for the feature.
No. Just the name of the movie.
Name of the short. We tried changing it to donkey.
Or Where's the donkey was really the closest we came.
All kinds of stuff, and then he said.
Night in the Desert. Sorry, what?
Once Upon a Time in the Holy Land?
Yeah, I think something of Jerusalem.
A funny thing happened on the way to Jerusalem.
Eventually he said, you know what, let's keep it this way. And I said, why? He said, well, think about it. It was actually brilliant. He was right. He said, think about it. It's called Achan and Ezra. Achan starts with A, so any film festival, our movie will show up first. It's exactly what happened. Every time you go to a website of festival, especially during pandemic, you see it. And like, okay, well, they can pronounce it. That is good. Let them, it works.
And it's funny. It creates a thing of like, how do you pronounce it?
By the way, there was supposed to be a donkey in it, as you know. I wanted to bring a donkey to the set. He was like, no way, it's going to cost extra money. I was like, yeah, but it would be fun. So we didn't do it. And then, of course, as you already know, we have a lot of friends. I called a friend, Felix, who is an amazing designer and also does title sequences. And I told him, Felix, maybe we do an animation introduction, but like not really animation, but more like really cool opening sequence where we can have a donkey and, people can be like, okay, and then we can show how donkey runs away. He said, no problem. Don't worry about this. I got it.
7 months later, we still didn't have an animation and we didn't have a poster which he was supposed to design.
But then 8 months later, he's like, okay, here it is. And he gives us 3 minute long animated movie about how donkey runs away.
It was 3 minutes long.
Okay, it was long. The point is, it was almost like the short by itself. And he's like, here. And I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't have most of the stuff we told you. So it doesn't matter, it's better. And so we contemplated about putting it in the movie, and then we were, okay, you cannot have a 2 minutes, whatever, long sequence with its own story in it. So we took it out eventually, but the idea was that
makes me think of the Blake Edwards, Peterson, like the Pink Panther kind of thing, where you always had a nice little animation intro.
Yes. But unfortunately, he didn't follow
did not listen to his director.
Yeah, something like that.
So what happens when you work with friends? They do their own thing.
But he has a really nice introduction. He put in his portfolio,
and he's fantastic. He really is very talented.
He did an amazing job.
It can live on its own. It just doesn't go well with the short.
He does tell the story about the donkey, but in a very weird way, and it's like would have confused people, So, but it still exists somewhere online, I guess.
And honestly, the way the film starts, you didn't need it anyway. Because I'm thinking about you really feel their tiredness and their exhaustion, and that would have been a distraction, really.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted the donkey because there was 2 reasons. First of all, I like donkeys. Second of all, when I was in high school, we were on this field trip, and they taught us how to ride a donkey, and they gave us a certificate. So I officially have a donkey driver license. So it's like, no, it's really true story. So it's like, this is great. I can finally, have a donkey and maybe can ride him. But Omri didn't agree.
These are his priorities as a director.
He was like, no way we're getting a donkey.
But is that a Soviet Union donkey driver's license?
No, Israel.
Israel.
High school in Israel.
Okay, so you were in Israel, so your license was good.
Yeah, it was good.
It was actually fun because, it was funny. I remember it was like 15 or something, and they were like, please make sure you wear long pants. I'm like, no, it's too hot. And then guess what happens? The donkey is short, so when you go and he goes through the terrain, so your legs basically destroyed for next months. So I learned how
just
to
scratched up.
Because donkeys, they like to eat of the things, and they
right. So he kept dragging you into the brush, and
but they still gave me a certificate.
Thorns and thistles all over your legs.
That's exactly what happened. And the instructor was like, I told you, everybody. I told you guys. Nobody listens. So
it's hot in the desert. You can't tell kids what to wear.
So, in case people wonder, yes, people do ride donkeys in Israel, and you can even get a driver license.
If you were wondering about the Israeli donkey license,
yes,
I've never seen anyone riding a donkey in Israel.
I did.
Just gonna say, a little bit younger.
It's because you come from a posh background.
Are you kidding? I come from farmland in Israel.
Well, either that or they just do it with the Russians who come to Israel. They're like, okay, we don't have cars. Here's a donkey. That could be also a possibility.
Well, your dad was a diplomat, but still, sounds a little posh.
We weren't in a posh area. No, we were in farmland. I grew up next to orange groves and dirt roads. That's where we were.
Listen, I basically, as I said, I'm born in Russia, so I had to exchange a bear to a donkey. I like donkeys.
Wonderful. Well, have there been other projects since this? And by the way, we did hint at the whole COVID thing, that you shot it right before and then you finished, and then your festival run was trapped by the pandemic.
I mean, we still had fun, but unfortunately, you're like, okay, you had a movie in a festival, great, but then, you don't actually enjoy the whole, ability to go through and meet with people. But,
Which was one of the things that was great about your festivals. We had those little windows and some mingling and stuff. It was nice.
Oh, yeah, we had a mixer, right? The outdoor mixer.
Mm-hmm. I was in Europe during that time.
But you were able to come and
came.
Yeah, that was for everyone listening. In November of 2020, so about 8 months into the pandemic, we had this festival, and it was virtual, but I was dying to meet people. I knew it was safe to meet outdoors, although we actually wore our masks, I believe, but we had an outdoor festival mixer for all the filmmakers to meet each other and a couple of the board members, and people came from as far as Portland and Austin, Texas, because it was the first time in almost a year that they could attend to something.
Yeah.
So I was amazed by that. That was really nice. That was a nice break from it all.
Yeah. It was really nice to speak to other filmmakers, and made a difference for sure.
It did, and hopefully, I don't know. Sometimes I always hear after the fact of people who met and traded emails and.
No, it's important. The social part, people go to festivals, you can, and even small festivals. You can meet people, and then that's one thing that unfortunately we couldn't do with the movie. But, a lot of, for me personally, for example, I owe some festivals my certain films, because if I didn't go, I didn't meet, it would never happen. So I actually believe in that part. It's worth the money you spend to travel or whatever, because if you're good with people, you actually can meet people, and it could contribute to a project, even when you're starting out.
Absolutely. Actually, as a festival programmer, I do have destination envy. Those festivals that I know take place in a small town or up on top of a mountain, that kind of, or on a Hawaiian island. I wouldn't have minded that either.
There's one in Bali.
Yeah, but when there's a destination, everyone's together for couple days or a week, that's a really special experience. Yeah, it didn't happen in the heart of LA.
No, not as much. No.
Although we do all right with our festivals, right? Because we have a mixer at the beginning of the festival, and then 5 to 7 days of films, and then a mixer at the end, and it's nice.
People still come.
But it's still not, getting up in the same. I've been in one of those where everyone's staying in the same hotel. Mm-hmm. That's nice. Seeing everyone at breakfast and going, oh boy, see that bad movie yesterday? Not kidding. They're always good.
Yeah,
It's fun.
it is. It's fun. But yeah, we spoke about our feature version of this that we're doing. Jan just shot a movie in Spain, produced it.
Yes,
about
very good
Dali.
movie. It's not quite about Dali.
No.
Dali is part of it.
The title.
It's a unique story. It's a really good project. Started as American. It's always been European. We were going to do it as an English-speaking film, and then we decided when COVID started, everything fell apart. I won't get too much into details. There are some interesting details. We basically decided, you know what, let's make it as a European film, because these days it doesn't really matter, and the movie is European subject. So we put an amazing European cast, and that was shot in this fall, and now we almost done with. I'm about to log the cut, and it's going to go to one of the big festivals. We know because it's a really good movie already, but I don't want to say anything yet. But I already kind of know what's going to happen. So that was fun to spend some time in Dali city town in Spain. He managed to make a feeter during pandemic.
I went to Ukraine actually and shot a film.
Like in the middle of pandemic.
Right in the middle. It was a bit nerve-wracking, but it was a great experience.
You got cast in it, and
I'm the lead of the movie.
It's a collaborative process.
It's an American detective travels to Ukraine to investigate this disappearance of a former professor that he worked with, and he uncovers this plot by a cult. So it's kind of Da Vinci Code meets Third Man with a little bit of Seven mixed in there. It was.
I was more a consulting producer on it, like an EP, but he, helped with the script a little bit.
I helped develop the script a bit and
rewrite the bad script. That's what he helped.
In other words, you made it worth shooting.
Yeah, I did what I could. It's,
you're humble, but Jan's selling.
Listen, compared to the movie came out decent considering all the circumstances, pandemic. Original script, which was messy, and a lot of other problems that I don't want to get. There's a whole separate podcast we can do about that specific movie. But he was there. I didn't go because I didn't want to go during the pandemic. He was there. He had decent experience. It was, he was taken care of pretty well. The movie is decent. It's coming out in theaters now in Ukraine, assuming theaters are still there when it comes out. Sorry for the bad joke, but I have a dark sense of humor. But it is coming out, and then
my family's Ukrainian, so it's not that we have a single person left there, but my goodness,
yeah. But the movie
every day.
Well, there's also media.
Congratulations!
Here,
Thank you.
So, but the movie is coming out, and then we are, hopefully going to get some kind of platform release here. Our mutual friend is helping with that. So
excellent.
So we'll see.
And I realized there's one question I didn't ask that I probably should of Jan, which is, all right. So I've heard your life story, a very brief version. So this was how did it feel to direct this film? Was it what you'd been?
I mean, it's between Omri and I. It was almost like a teamwork because there were two of us that had to have to produce and fix things, and and of course, Omri wrote the script, so he already built his own night character. It was very hard to say anything about it because it was like. It worked. So, but yes, it was fun. It was too short in my opinion. I would like to do it, more, but that's why the feature thing is happening. But yes, I should have done it earlier. And thanks to Omri for pushing me because, as I said, I would procrastinate it another 5 years. But it was also, I always thought, but what if I do a short, what would it be? Because I want the comedy, but I wasn't sure. I read a lot of scripts. At some point I even went to one of those websites has scripts and read a bunch of shorts, and I didn't like anything. And I don't really write. I mean, I can, but I had a script I wrote in film school, which I thought maybe that could be something. But then it was like, okay, but this is too dark, to this, to that. And then this idea came up, and I really enjoyed the process. But of course, if I do, when I do the next movie, whatever it will be, Achan, Ezra, or there's a few other things I'm developing to direct, I'd like to have a producer. Because yes, of course you can take a credit, but honestly, when you don't have somebody taking care of that and you have to do it, it's very hard to focus on directing as well and on everything else. So I really would like to have somebody to actually make it so I can focus on that, and Omri and I can focus on the creative part because we work well as a team. But I don't really want to produce. And here, that's what happened. So, yeah, I enjoyed it, but of course, I had to think about a bunch of other elements in the process, which...
Right. Well, because it was a small team. And,
yeah, of course.
And everyone
ends
ends up.
Yes. The experience were great, but as I said, I should have done it earlier because maybe, But now, hopefully, with the feature, it will be a little bit different because we'll have somebody to actually help with the organizing part a little more.
Yeah. We have a couple things going, so we'll see.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Well, I guess we're just over an hour, as predicted. So, because we talked about how long we'd go, and said, normally around an hour, it peters out. So, do you guys want to share social media or websites or anything?
Well, I'm not really a social media person, although I should listen to people, including my mother, who keeps saying, you should promote yourself, put yourself out there. And then she sticks my pictures on her Facebook page, and I'm like, oh my God, please help me, God. But anyway,
I don't know why she keeps on saying you should go on OnlyFans. It's a bit strange.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, that's actually, you know what, today, considering for 2 years of not much happening, I was considering that, because, the independent producer is a tough... people don't realize, and even creative people that don't know producing, they're like, yeah, you guys taking all the money, you're this, you're that. But the reality is it's actually opposite. We're taking nothing, I always, there's a joke, a Russian joke, which means it's not funny, but I remodeled it to like a film industry, and basically it goes like this, you have a Hannibal walking with a big bag, and something is, Hannibal is the guy that eats cannibal. Cannibal. So he has a bag, like a Santa Claus type of a bag behind his back, and he's walking with it, and something is clearly alive there, and he runs into another cannibal, and the cannibal says to him, what do you have there? He's like, nothing. He's like, no, I can see something is alive there. What do you have there? He's like, well, I was at this film festival, and I caught this independent producer. And the guy goes, no, get rid of him. He's like, why? He's like, I had one of those yesterday while he was boiling in the stew, he ate all my potatoes. So that's kind of, for me, that's mostly what the indie industry is. People, there's a lot of struggle. So when you actually manage to do something, I think any movie is a miracle. And making any film is a miracle, especially these days, especially in an independent movie, because there's so many elements to actually make it happen. And it's a teamwork. Like I always tell people, if you think you're the genius director and you can make it happen, you can't. If you don't have a team, if you don't have people that support you, if you don't have a team that understand you, if you become a dictator, yes, you can want to become, big name, you can do whatever. But until then, you gotta kind of, if you want to help, you need to help. You need to get your team to support you. So, so that's.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're sitting on this podcast, because I have so much respect for people who get indie films made, because the landscape is so different now than even 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Just the homes.
So social media. I have Instagram.
Oh, you have Instagram.
So occasionally, I don't really, put myself in there, but occasionally I do put projects that we do, and who knows? Now I'm thinking about, because now I started directing, I get a little bit more involved into that. So I'm considering doing like a more of a, something bigger. Maybe starting TikTok. Maybe telling Russian jokes. They're not funny, but I can get a lot of.
So you already heard a preview.
This was the funnier one.
The cannibal.
This was the funnier one. But anyway,
your cannibal joke. I'm just going to share, because we've got a writer and a producer. The joke about the producer and the writer are crawling through the desert. Their car broke down. They're crawling in the sand, dying of thirst, and then 20 feet away they see a pool of water, and they crawl up to it. And the writer starts putting his hand in it, and as he's lifting the water to his lips, he looks up and he sees the producer pissing in the water. And he goes, "What are you doing?" And the producer says, "Don't worry, I'm making it better."
That's funny.
That was told to me by a screenwriter when I was a very young person, but that's my writer producer.
But I think it changed a little bit now, because at least for me, I never do that. I work. I know how to work with writers if I'm actually in a producer capacity.
That's more the the Hollywood thing, where the guy is just. I'm being sexist, it's the guy, but yeah, the guy is just like, well, if I'm going to take a paycheck, I got to change something.
Well, actually, I believe that the studios have even more influence. You know, I was literally thinking the other day about some really well-known studio directors that are really good, and I'm thinking, okay, but they probably much, because if you look at certain studio films, you see a certain connection. You can almost feel like, there's similarities, but they're like the directors are good, and some of them directed independent movies before. And then, of course, today I accidentally stumbled upon an article which talks about Francis Ford Coppola saying exactly the same thing. Hey, by the way, I think those directors are much more talented, but they're being screwed by studio. And I'm like, I just thought about that. So so that may be that, but I think also studios are. I think the independent cinema is evolving. TV is evolving. I think there's a lot more opportunities for young talent. I think there's a lot more opportunities for people in general. I think it's going to, we're going to end up with studios being studios, and then everybody else there's going to be some kind of a direct, which already happening, filmmaker to consumer kind of thing where you could share your work with, and then you maybe don't need the stars. You're still going to go to a theater to see big Marvel movie, but I think that there's a lot more to it, and I think things are evolving and changing for good. I don't know how social media conversation went into that, but this is what it is. So I do have Instagram, so if anybody wants to connect, great. It's Yan, YAN, F7R.
Right.
So that's all my social media.
7R is your Fisher?
Yes, it's Fisher, and 7R. Honestly, I like number 7, and I don't remember why I put R exactly, but it was a reason.
It's good, but it's nice and short too.
Yes.
Nice and short.
So so that's my social media at the moment, and yeah.
And no website you need us to share?
We had a website for a company, but I don't know, nobody's using it, so,
Honestly, websites don't get updated anymore, and no one goes to websites anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no point, and, if I want to share something, a lot of time there are special website we create, or distributor will share it, so but I do use Instagram to meet people. Sometimes when you go to a film festival, people can, hi, and then or you a lot of old friends that you haven't seen for a while, but I don't necessarily use it. I have a lot of just beautiful pictures because my background's photographer, so I like taking pictures, still pictures, so I still do it. Occasionally I talk about my projects there, but yeah. So
absolutely. And Omri?
I don't social media so much at all. Technically I have an Instagram. I think the last time I posted something on it,
he doesn't follow anybody.
And I don't follow anyone on Instagram.
Excellent. So you have an Instagram account with 0 followers and 0 following.
No. People follow me.
People follow you, but
I don't,
you don't
follow anyone. The point of it is I have it because people keep on saying I need to have it, and I need to see check out this thing so you can look at it on Instagram. If you don't have an Instagram account, you can't. I'm the point of not following anyone is. Obviously, there are a couple people that maybe it would be good to follow that I would enjoy following, but I feel like the second I open up that can of worms, it's then there's all that oh, I'm offended you're not following me. I don't go on Instagram. I'm not on it, so I don't want anyone to get this preconceived notion that I'm following anyone. It's not
It's egalitarian what you're doing.
To a certain extent.
Everyone equally.
Exactly. And again, I don't really post on it. It does exist. Maybe I'll...
Yes, you do.
At some point.
He reposts other people's stuff.
Oh yeah, when I'm tagged in things, I'll repost or whatever.
I'm I already seen it, and 5 different people.
Look, all I do on my personal account is pictures of things growing in the garden.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of pictures of my dog in there. Actually, I'm thinking about it, which people like a lot.
People love the dogs.
Yeah, it's you put the dog, everyone's oh my god.
In fact, I've curated, the stuff that they try to show you things that you've clicked on before. So I make a point of only tapping on dogs, so that when they push things at me in their reels, I just see Siberian Huskies who talk.
Nice. Yeah, that's basically what I get sometimes because I use Instagram mostly lately to look at
I skip over the bikinis. I don't want them to think I want to look at bikinis. Show me a dog until I get to a dog. And then I'm
I want bikinis, but it gets me in trouble all the time, so I'm done with bikinis.
Very tricky world.
Yeah.
I guess it goes back to what my mom asked me,
Right, you're not in it to be famous. Fair enough.
The privacy and anyway, but I do have Instagram, omri.rose. That's my handle, I guess.
Very original.
Very original. It's my name with a dot in the middle. But I also have some podcasts that are out there if you want to check them out. I have Shadow of Truth, which is a true crime podcast. It was the #1 true crime podcast for like 2 months when it came out. And I have Spies and Lies, which is a podcast that I created. It's an espionage podcast that I co-host with my father. We talk about all things espionage, and that's an exciting podcast. So
that sounds very cool. Now that I know you've lived around the world, and diplomat is now in quotes in my mind.
So
Spies and Lies and Shadow of Truth.
Yeah,
well, we're working on a podcast together now based on a very big story, which I can't really give too much information, but it's based on an article, and it's something to do with drug industry and Cali cartel.
Podcasting is a fun. Besides the fact that we're on one, and I'm about to ask people to like and subscribe and give 5 stars. But it's a cool medium. I enjoy it as a listener. That and then I seek out really boring ones that help me go to sleep.
Nice, good.
What are you going to do? All right. Well, we just said like and subscribe, but this is the Discover Indie Film Podcast, and Jan Fisher and Omri Rose just talked about their film Achan and Ezra, and you should watch it. You may not be able to see it right now, or can they see it online? Do you have it online?
You're going to be the first one where we're giving them to do that.
So the film is going to be in the Discover Indie Film TV series, and it's going to be in Season 5, which I'm hoping releases on March 15th. I just have to wrap things up with a couple other films, but go to Amazon Prime Video on a nice, big, beautiful TV with the motion settings corrected and the color settings corrected. I'm getting a big thumbs up from Omri.
Take some Hebrew lessons if you want to.
Yes. And it makes me feel bad that I don't remember anything. But so go to Prime Video, search for Discover Indie Film. And by the way, be a nice person and go to Amazon.com and give this TV series 5 stars. Why not? Doesn't hurt you to give it 5 stars.
It's free.
It's free. And by the way, Amazon's a little funny. Every season is separate. So the stars that go to Season 1 don't apply to Season 5. Season 5 will say no reviews. So come on, everybody. Share a little love.
Share love.
And the comedy Achan and Ezra will be in Discover Indie Film. If you want to learn more, discoverindiefilm.com is the website. And the social media handle is @DIFWins. DIF for Discover Indie Film, and wins because first we had to change the name of the podcast, actually, and everyone voted for that one. DIF won. Wins. All right. And Achan and Ezra was in both film festivals that I'm going to mention now. It was in the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in November of 2020. We hold that festival every November. In fact, last November, when we got back in the theater, we went for 8 days.
Wow.
8 days.
Nice. It's like Hanukkah.
Like Hanukkah, right? And if you want to learn more about that festival, go to ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's @ShermanOaksFF on social media. And the June festival that also had their film, every June we have Film Invasion Los Angeles. If you want to learn about that, go to FilmInvasionLA.com, and it's @FilmInvasionLA on social media. And thank you both for coming over.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.